It's almost time for us to take Lando the Land Cruiser on its very first overland trip to Eastern Washington. And since I've been putting a ton of work into the rig, now is the perfect time to break everything down in one mega huge walk around video. I'm going to start in the area where I get the most questions, and that's what engine did I choose to put in the 93 Land Cruiser? Very simple. I went with a 5.3 Gen 5 LT out of a 2018 Chevy Silverado. This has been an engine that I stumbled on. The car came with a busted 1FZ, and I needed to replace that or rebuild that. Knowing that this would be the rig that does everything, it needed to have an engine that would tow, would do great on the highway, would have enough horsepower for climbing and camping, and was somewhat reliable. I knew I had to swap the engine out, and I didn't want to go with diesel, and I didn't want to build another one FZE, and I knew I didn't want to throw in like a JDM diesel in here either, just because parts for those engines are hard. The engines itself are like $12,000, and I found this bad boy local to me for around 4,500 bucks. So if you do the math, 4,500 bucks for an engine, transmission, and ECU compared to rebuilding a 1FZE FE, it's right at the same price to build it. The only thing I knew that would be a little bit more expensive would be getting a wiring harness, and I went with swap time on that. Excuse my wiring mess. This is not swap time. This is swap time. Look at how nice this is. This is not swap time. So like, this is not a reflection of Mitch and his harnesses. I went with a harness from swap time. I went with the hard mounting kit from Torfab. Torfab and swap time are basically the two people that have been the most helpful with everything on this build. Torfab helped me get some parts to get this installed. Swap time helped tie it all together and make everything run. And with these two together, the Gen 5 LT 5.3 now lives. But I knew that just a hot rod engine and an 80 series isn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to have this thing do everything. So I had to run a spare battery, and for many reasons, for accessories, for safety, for whatever. And the spare battery we went with is the Optima Yellow Top, and it's sitting in a SLE off-road bracket. The reason why we went with this bracket is because it allows me not only to mount the spare battery in the front where they're supposed to go, but I can also throw on the ARB dual air brushless compressor. And I went with a brushless for a few reasons. One, it's newer tech, so it should help inflate tires a little bit faster. And two, I needed an air compressor to run the air lockers. This has front and rear ARB air lockers, and it of course has the center diff lock, the factory center diff lock. Then I have the Bantam X lighting controller that controls all the lights, and I couldn't be more happier with this. I also have quite a bit of a wire mess I need to clean up. Another thing I did was I went and I plumbed with Cruiser Mats lines and some sort of adapters from Cold Hose. I now have a working AC in here and heater. So like that box is checked. The main battery is an X2 power, as you can see here. I went with an X2 power because I wanted to make sure the car would always start no matter what. I get questions about the battery terminals for some reason. So these are ICS Fab billet battery terminals. They're a lot more tidy. They allow me to throw in a lot more accessories. And then on this side, these are Moroso billet battery terminals that allow me to throw in all my extra junk. There's cleaner ways of doing this, but most of this stuff needs like direct power. So I went with this. I also threw this in here. If you're thinking about doing the swap, you don't need to buy a 5.3. You can buy, I think there's a 6.2 option that came in the Silverados, and there might even be another one. There might be I think maybe like a 7 liter. I'm not sure, but I know that and Gen 5 series has a couple options. I went with a 5.3 only because there was one local to me, not because I was hell bent on getting a 5.3. Um, I also chose to do an engine swap here because I looked at the options of what I could do with a blown 1FZE. How much would it cost to rebuild it, make it super reliable? Those engines are fantastic. The car only really had 277,000 miles on it, so I probably could have got away with a rebuild. Um, But knowing that I would be putting 37s on this, knowing that it's going to haul dogs, it's our rooftop tent, it's going to be doing tons of miles, it's going to be doing off-roading with the boys, it's going to be doing road trips with the family. I really needed a power plant and a transmission that could do it all. And no shade to the 1FZE folks out there, because there are some incredible 1FZE builds, but it's kind of at its limit when you throw on 37s, even if you re-gear it and you expect to do major highway miles and then do all the camping and all that stuff. Like, it's just at the very limit. And the 1FZE FE really doesn't make a lot of power unless you turbo it or supercharge it. And so I just didn't feel right. I also didn't want to throw in like a Mercedes diesel or a Cummins diesel. That just wasn't me. Really didn't care about all the Japanese diesels for this car. Parts for those would be hard for me to find. And so I found this just on Marketplace and decided to pull the trigger, and I'm super happy I did. We are still in the front of the car, so I will talk about the front bumper and the lights. The front bumper we ran is the Goliath off-road front bumper. There are many front bumper options for 80 series. In fact, people even make YouTube videos on all the options you can get. And the reason why I went with the Goliath off-road bumper is, one, it's really slim, as you can tell here. It's not like a big boy ARB. It's not sticking out. Two, it's very high clearance. And three, made in the USA, so great quality there. They say it's made for Baja Designs fog lights, but if you look really closely, there's some R&D that needs to happen. Like, it makes the lights just a little too high, but whatever. They work as fog lights. Goliath Off-Road, if you're watching, make your mounts a little bit lower for the fog lights. Then we'll move on over. We'll stay on the exterior. We'll move on over to the side. The lift kit that we have on this bad boy is the Eibach lift kit, 3-inch front and rear, with the big engine in the front and the dual batteries and the winch. The lift in the front's more of like a 2-inch lift. It's not really quite 3. Might even be a little bit lower than that, to be honest with you, because it's hard for spring companies to come up with springs to deal with all that. Continuing on for the front of the vehicle, we went with the HD Racing BL79 forged beadlock wheels all around. And then for the front, I went with the Tyrox 6-pot front brake calipers. The factory 80 series brakes are actually pretty dope for when they came out. They're 4 pots. But I wanted something a little bit bigger because of how big of the wheels and tire package I'm going to be running. Then underneath the car, I have the Delta 3L radius arms that moves the front axle 1 inch forward. Then I did it's kind of hard for y'all to see in here, the Terrain Tamer front steering damper. Then I went with Delta drag links. And then, of course, because this car came with like shit knuckles when I bought it, I rebuilt all the knuckles. Moving on to the side and the rear. These are the white knuckle sliders. I chose the flatter ones instead of the angled up ones because the flatter ones give us more of a step to get in and out of the rig. The ones that angle up give you more clearance off-road, but, you know, I have to make it family friendly. So we went with the flatter white knuckle sliders. And I also threw on the 80 series kind of old school graphics. It's modeled after a 60 series. Kind of stole this from my buddy Wes, Black Hills Builds. He gave me the permission to run it, and I think it really adds a lot to the rig. Baja Design Squadron Pro ditch lights and Yoda Tech ditch light mirror mounts. The ditch light goes through the mirror housing, inside the door, through the fender, and then into the engine bay. And that keeps it a clean install. I also got these, they're kind of cheap, eBay mirrors for the 80 series. They're not factory. And I painted them half flat black and then half color match to match the black theme of the trim. And I think that matches really well. The back, I'm running a 4x4 Labs rear bumper. And the reason why I chose this bumper is because it gives me dual swing outs, which you can see I'm using one of the swing outs right now for the propane bottle. It gives me protection on the side in case rocks wanted to come up and hit the fenders. Plus, it makes for a great step. Another reason why I chose the 4x4 Labs rear bumper, and I know you don't buy an off-road car for this reason, but I bought it for this reason, is the rear trailer hitch, as you can see there. And I've already towed with it, and I've loved it. It towed my Corolla to a racetrack and back. Made my own propane tank mount here. This is kind of like a spare tire swing. You can put the spare tire on this side, or you can put it on this side over here. That's where my license plate goes. And so I don't have a 5th spare yet, so that's going to be my propane tank holder. We'll stay on the outside because there's a lot on the inside I want to show you, but we'll stay on the outside. I'm running the Sherpa LaSalle roof rack, And that roof rack then is topped off by a iCamper Skycamp DLX rooftop tent. I love this rooftop tent. It's probably one of the best rooftop tents I've ever used in my life. However, that rooftop tent is gargantuan on this car. And I kind of wish we had a smaller rooftop tent, just for the sake of it's kind of making the 80 look tiny. That rooftop tent looked great on the Sequoia because that car was a behemoth, and it'll probably look good on like a Tundra or in the truck bed. But on an 80, it just, in my opinion, makes it look like it has a mushroom cap and it's just too big. Another part in the front that I wanted to talk to you guys about are the Baja Designs LP9. These are the LP9 Pros, and I have them in kind of standby like house light mode. And I do this because a lot of cars nowadays have LEDs in their headlights to attract attention. And because this car is, 30 years old, there are no LED headlights that look good on this car. So I threw on the kind of like LED house running lights to keep them on at all times when the car is on, and even when the car's off for a certain amount of time, and then they automatically shut off. Now is a great time to move on to the interior. I'll give you a quick rundown on what makes this all possible with the tap shift, because I want to show you guys how it all works. It's kind of nerdy shit. 93 Land Cruiser does not have a ribbon cable or airbag, so you need some way for these paddles to send a signal to the factory ECU to change gears. And the way you do that is you run some sort of grounding paddle shifter. You can use a switch on a dash and hardwire it, and that's fine. You don't need to do it this way. You could just do it any other way. You can even put a button on the shifter here, up and down. You could put a button on the stock. You can use other things. You could even use, I was thinking about it, tangent, the up and down from the radio antenna to shift gears. But I wanted paddle shifters, and in order to make paddle shifters work, you have to send a signal. The only way you can do that is wirelessly. And the only company that I know that makes a wireless module is a company called PVS out of Australia. And what they do is they have a transmitter that sits in the horn bucket of your factory steering wheel, runs off horn power, then it sends a signal to a receiver down in the footwell. The receiver sends that signal to the muscle car module from Swap Time. Again, I love Swap Time more than anything. Then that module sends a signal to the ECU and the transmission control module, and it selects the gear that you've commanded with the paddles. It's a lot, I know. I have a little indicator here. I'm gonna go down for y'all. That tells me what gear I'm in when I'm driving. Enough of me talking about it. I'm just gonna show footage of how it works here. I'm gonna test out the paddle shift on the steering wheel. Right now, we're in 4th gear, and I'm gonna hit downshift. Ready? Downshift. 3rd gear. Now we're gonna give it some gas. 4th gear. Put down shift to 3rd. Look at that. Can we go to 2nd? 2nd. All right, here we go. We're gonna go slow. We'll go up to 3rd. Watch my hand. Are we in 3rd? Yeah. Hey, we got paddle shift working. I get a lot of questions about the paddle shifters. It's something that I really wanted to install. It's my own little thing. Some people cringe when they see wood grain and carbon fiber, and I don't really care. This is my thing. I'm so super stoked on it. If you have any questions on the paddle shifters or want to see a specific video on them, I'll gladly make that video for you. Okay, the rest of the interior, I have the Sparco GT front seats. I think they look rather perfect in an 80 series. I went with the black and brown theme, so I paired it with black WeatherTech floor mats, and then I used Steel It to paint the center console black to match everything. So that's there. So I like the black and brown kind of chocolate theme that we got going on in here. I think it looks really good. On the Japanese spec center diff lock button, because when I did the swap, 4 low wasn't automatically locking the center diff, and so I just threw on that button, wired it in. It works perfectly. Highly recommend it. Now I also get a center diff lock in 4 high, which is pretty dope. The reason why I went with the S Pod from Bantamex is because I love pressing buttons when I'm controlling lights. The way I have this wired up is it's going to work off the secondary battery, so I can run the lights at any time, car on or off. The Bantamex and the S Pod are smart, and so they'll automatically turn everything off if voltages are low, so I won't burn out that second battery. And then secondly, another huge advantage of having the S Pod system in here is because I can run a main controller up here for all my driving lights, and then I can run a sub controller off the same box in the back of the car, all the way over there, for these 3 open spots. And these can be my camping lights. So like house lights, awning lights, etc. Also, S-Pod partnered with me on this build. They're one of my own, a handful of partners who said yes. And if you have any questions on the S-Pod or the Bantam X, please ask me, because you might look at the sticker of this and be like, wow, that's really expensive. I'll get an aux beam. But I can tell you from experience, this is the best lighting controller I've ever used. We'll move on over to the back of the rig, because this is where I just spent the most amount of time preparing for our trip. I'm pretty proud of it. This is probably the most setup I've had any overland rig in my life. So let me open this up here. Let's dive into the interior of the 80 series. You can kind of see I have like cleaning material here, but first and foremost, I'm using the Nomad Kitchen Company kitchen and storage drawer as the base. Then I built platforms that go on top of the Nomad Kitchen Company drawers. And the reason why I built it this way is because there are many options out there for storage in a rear 80. Heck, Dobinson's makes drawers. Some people leave the back seats in and you build out that way. Goose Gear makes panels all the way through. I went with this for 2 main reasons. Reason number 1, price. I bought 2 drawers from Nomad Kitchen Co. I think that was $2,200, which is a lot, but you'll see why in a second. Then I made everything else myself, whereas Goose Gear would have been around $7,000. And then secondly, any other person who makes drawers for an 80 series puts the drawers really high up. And we travel with 3 pit bulls. And I just didn't feel safe having 3 dogs like sitting at this height in the car. That for me is like a no, I'm not doing that. I don't want my dogs like jumping out the windows while I'm driving. And so the Nomad Kitchen Co. drawers allow them to sit a little bit lower than everything else. And then it gives me the freedom of making my own sleeping platform. Another thing that makes me super stoked on the Nomad Kitchen Co. drawers is I got my kitchen here, and I have a line that I could run from my stove to my propane tank. Propane tank can move, but for right now, this works really well. I have some sort of wash basin down in here, and then I have extra storage for like kitchen stuff in here. So like already, this has saved me so much packing, like no bags, no issue, no anything. The only bad thing is I bought this brand new Camp Chef Kodiak stove because I thought it was cool. But as you can tell, it makes a lot of noise. And so when you're off-roading on stuff like this, you're going to hear this thing a lot, and it's kind of annoying. But that's the only problem. I could have got a better stove. Over on this side, we have our tool drawer. And I have an extra cutting board there. And I also have all kinds of stuff for camp. So this is my air down, air up stuff. This is some extra tools, extra pads. It's kind of a mess now. This would be like my every like camping box. So I have lights, coffee grinder, cups. I went fly fishing, so I have fly fishing stuff in here. I have spare shoes in here and a fishing net. But you can tell like the freedom of having 2 drawers that pull out. You have all your just junk for camp on this one, and then you have your kitchen one on this one. Adding more storage to the 80 series is like paramount for me. So I added a tailgate storage situation here from Hurricane Fabrication. And it's holding my jumper cables and like extra tools in here. You can add more stuff, obviously. The more stuff you add in this tailgate, though, the heavier it's going to get. So just like be prepared that if you make this thing like loaded with gear, it's always going to fall down really hard. So just be super careful with that. Also in the rear, I have the Baja Designs rear S1s and ambers for chase lights and like camp light, cook light. I can rotate it out and like aim it at wherever I want it to go. But the thing I'm most proud about back here, other than the platforms for the dogs and like all the storage, is I put our waters back on both sides and made the sleeping platform kind of symmetrical. And the reason why I did that is because we have 3 pit bulls and they all need their own amount of water. And I need water. My wife needs water. And carrying water while camping is always kind of hard. You can throw water like in the spare where that goes, but then that always gets dirty. And then like accessing it's really hard. You can carry like jugs, or like I could put a water tank behind the back seats, but then it's like behind the back seats. So I wanted to do is I wanted to make the water jugs back here always accessible. So what we did was we did 2 3-gallon Dometic water jugs, one on each side, and they can tap into the faucet that's in the sink here. That goes here, and then I can pull this out, and I basically have like water while I'm camping in the sink. Another cool thing is this little guy is magnetic, so he can stick to my tailgate too. And so then I can use it to like wash my hands when I'm done fishing, or like wash my boots, wash the dog's paws off. I'm really happy on the location of the Dometic jugs in the back of the rig. I also love that they are accessible with the tailgate up. All I have to do is open the rear hatch and I can grab those. Pretty stoked on that. Another thing that I just added for this camp trip is the Alu-Cab tilting fridge slide. As you can tell, the fridge sits up pretty high in the back of the rig, and I can't really like get in here and load it. Like, how am I going to add food to it? So the Alu-Cab is pretty rad. It pulls the fridge all the way out, and it can stay like that, and it's safe, and it's not going to break. But what you can do, and I'm going to try and do this one-handed, folks, is you lift up on the fridge, and it'll pull out, and then it tilts. And as you can see here, it allows me to access the fridge in a way, one, that it's lower, and then two, I can fully open the fridge door and it won't hit my hatch. I'm really stoked on that Alu-Cab fridge slide. I got a no-name fridge slide from some other company, and it was like the worst decision ever. So this is the Iceco VL45 Pro S fridge. I love it because it's black. I love it because it's whisper quiet. So you can tell it's on right now because the light turns on when I open the lid. And it runs off my EcoFlow that I have. And I could usually run the EcoFlow, the smaller EcoFlow, with this for about like 2 days, which is a great excuse for me to tell you about the EcoFlow. This is kind of a temporary setup here. You can see wires coming out of the door. But what I have is I have the EcoFlow River Pro, an old one. This is just 700 watt hours. And it's wired to the fridge, which is duh. But then it's hardwired to the charger, the Bluetti Charger 1, which is going to be hard for y'all to see. But that's in here. Hi, he's in there hiding. You can see him. And that Bluetti Charger 1 allows me to charge my EcoFlow while I'm driving at over 200 watts per hour. I can even go up to like 300 because I have a mega huge alternator, which means I can fully charge in between 3 and 4 hours driving from 0 to 100%. On top of that, this thing lasts like 2 days on that just by itself, maybe even 3. So I will basically never run out of power once I have that Charger 1, the EcoFlow, and then this fridge. It's a super efficient fridge. It's kind of an old battery, but it works, and then a really great charger. If I were to change anything about the system, one, I would find some sort of modern tech, like a Bluetti, what is it, the 100S or whatever it's called, that will go there. That's 1,000 watt hours, and I'll permanently mount it so it's not just kind of like sitting at an angle like that. But I mean, for now, this works, and I couldn't be happier. This actually got us to the trip and back, kept everything cold. Overnight, everything, the fridge stays on, and when the car's on, everything charges up. Like, I could not be more stoked on how simple and effective that system is. Okay, that's basically a mouthful. I've been talking, I think, for almost an hour about this car. I've taken like 100 different takes. And the only thing that's left now is for me to shut up and take it out on the trail.